Despite efforts by first responders and medical personnel, Mr. Lee died from his injuries. The San Francisco Police Department Homicide Detail responded and took over the investigation. Our homicide investigators developed information that identified the suspect as 38-year-old Nima Momeni of Emeryville, California. We can confirm that Mr. Lee and Mr. Momeni knew each other. However, we will not be able to provide further details at this time regarding the evidence that confirms that information. This morning, members of the San Francisco Police Department's Investigations Bureau and Tactical Unit served several search warrants and an arrest warrant in San Francisco and Emeryville, California. Mr. Momeni was taken into custody without incident in Emeryville, California. He was transported to the San Francisco County Jail and booked on one charge of murder, California Penal Code Section 187A. I'd like to remind everybody that this is still an open and ongoing investigation, and we will not be able to provide further details at this point. Before I turn this over to our district attorney, I want to assure everyone that our investigators have been working tirelessly to make this arrest and bring this case to justice for the Lee family and his loved ones, just as we would for every homicide that occurs in this city. I'd like to thank our homicide investigators, led by Detective Brett Dittmer and Detective Thomas McWilliams, also Lieutenant Kelvin Sanders, and our entire homicide team who have worked not only on this case, but all of our open cases. You know, I said from the start that I have every confidence in the men and women and the members that work homicide. They have an 85% clearance rate year to date, and that is expected to go to 92% because we just solved a 1994 case yesterday as well. We never give up finding justice for the victims in this city, and I want to make sure that everybody knows how hard the men and women and members of this department work to keep this city safe. With that said, just a reminder, we won't be able to provide many details in this case today, but this is an ongoing investigation. We still have work to do, and our job is to provide the best evidence possible to this district attorney and her team so we can bring this case and any other homicide or crime in the city to justice. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our district attorney, Brooke Jenkins.
Can you confirm if this is the or not?
We'll take questions after.
So as you're aware, I am Brooke Jenkins, the district attorney here in San Francisco, and I want to thank you first all for being here. I also want to start off by first acknowledging the pain and anguish that Mr. Lee's family and friends are currently experiencing. There is nothing worse than a parent having to bury their child, or a young child having to bury their parent. My prayers go out to them during this very difficult time. I too want to commend the San Francisco Police Department for their work in identifying who committed this heinous crime. They worked around the clock to solve this case. While in some cases we do immediately have a suspect, that was not the situation here. As a result of their hard work, Mr. Lee's killer has been identified, arrested, and now will be brought to justice. As a former prosecutor in our homicide unit, I have personally worked on cases with the detectives that solved this case. They are dedicated to justice and have further demonstrated their commitment to ensuring that San Franciscans do get justice when something like this happens. I am here today to formally announce the charges against Mr. Nima Momeni for the murder of Bob Lee. The specific charges that we are filing today include murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187, as well as a special allegation also known as an enhancement, alleging that this murder was committed with a knife. As for next steps, as I know you all are eager to follow this case, Mr. Momeni is expected to be arraigned in Department 10 of the Hall of Justice tomorrow afternoon at 1:30 p.m. My office will be filing a motion to detain Mr. Momeni without bail to ensure that he remains in custody during the pendency of this case due to the obvious and severe public safety risks that we believe that he poses to the public. I want to end by saying thank you to Mr. Lee's family and the people of San Francisco for being patient with law enforcement during the course of this investigation. I know that everyone has wanted answers since this tragedy happened. While nothing can heal the pain of Mr. Lee's loss, thank you for putting your trust in the San Francisco Police Department and now in my office to ensure that we seek justice in this case. I acknowledge and understand how the loss of a young, vibrant leader and innovator has rocked our city and even beyond. Since taking office last July, I've worked tirelessly to ensure that San Franciscans not only feel safer, but actually are safer. Even one murder is too many. Regardless of the facts, violent acts like this are jarring to us all. As you already heard, Mr. Lee was murdered by somebody that he knew. While we're not going to release any additional facts at this time, I must point out that reckless and irresponsible statements like those contained in Mr. Musk's tweet that assumed incorrect circumstances about Mr. Lee's death serve to mislead the world in their perceptions of San Francisco and also negatively impact the pursuit of justice for victims of crime as it spreads misinformation at a time when the police are trying to solve a very difficult case. We all should and must do better about not contributing to the spread of such misinformation without having actual facts to underlie the statements that we make. Victims deserve that, and the residents of San Francisco deserve that. While public safety continues to be a top concern and priority for every resident and business owner in San Francisco, I will continue to work with Mayor London Breed and our police chief, Bill Scott, and other city leaders to ensure that public safety in our city continues to improve. I've dedicated the last 8 years of my career to holding some of our city's most violent offenders accountable. And as your district attorney, I promise that my office will continue the fight to enhance public safety and to hold Mr. Lee's killer, as we do all others, accountable. Thank you.
We're going to open up to just a few questions. Annie, go ahead.
Oh, I have two questions. First of all, I just wanted to make sure that if we use, is this the suspect? Sorry.
You know, see us after, because I have never met the Mr. Momini, so I can't confirm that in this press conference, but we appreciate the question.
How do you link the suspect to the case? What lead did you have? Was there any security footage that you saw this guy and then you hone in on him? How did you find him?
Well,
Link him to the case?
we followed the evidence, and there's a lot of evidence, and again, there's still work to be done on this case. So, and there's still evidence that we need to locate. So we are very limited in what we need to say at this point. And I want to reemphasize what has been said by me and the district attorney. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we get justice for the families and Mr. Lee. And I really appreciate everybody's enthusiasm to get information, but we have to put the case first. So we won't be able to go into details about any evidence today.
Miguel, go ahead.
Chief, what can you tell us about the suspect and the victim's time together before the incident, and how long were you tracking the suspect?
Well, the evidence shows that they knew each other, and that's about as much as I can say. You know, this case started over a week ago, and we've been working around the clock since then. So the things will come out as this case proceeds, and particularly when it gets to court. But at this point, that's about as much as I can say. I will say this. We've been on this round the clock from the start. And I just want to make sure that the world knows that we have other homicides that we work just as hard on. I understand and appreciate the interest in this case. That's not lost on any of us. But let's not forget that we have lost other lives in this city, and there's work to be done on those cases as well.
Evan, go ahead.
Chief, can you say anything about the motive? Was this a targeted killing? Was it an altercation that erupted, a fight, anything about that?
Well, can't say anything about the motive at this point. But we do know that they knew each other. The evidence has told us that.
Hi, good morning. My name is Riley Palmer. I'm with KTV. My question is, how would you respond to the people who portrayed this death in San Francisco to make San Francisco out to be like a lawless and crime-ridden place?
Well, what I will say to that is, this is more about human nature and human behavior than it is about our city. You take this out of San Francisco, they knew each other. You put it in another city, and I'm not going to name any other city because I don't want to do that to any other city, but just put it in any other city. I don't believe it would have changed the circumstances one bit. This is not about San Francisco. It happened in San Francisco, and that is unfortunate. It's even more of a tragedy that it happened at all, but this speaks to more about human nature. Facts show and research shows that most people who commit homicides know the people that they kill. The research shows that. So, I do understand, how people see and view things. I see it, I read it, I live here just like, a lot of you all. But this has nothing to do with San Francisco. This has to do with human nature.
I'm gonna go right here, and then, go ahead.
Thanks. This is a question from the Chronicle. Can you talk about what possessions Mr. Lee had on him at the time that police found him?
Yeah, I can't talk about that because I don't have that information anyway right now. And in terms of what Mr. Lee had on him, that will come out as far as the investigation, that will come out as the investigation proceeds. So thank you.
You said that there were 2 warrants served, one in Emeryville and one here. Is there any expectation of another arrest or anyone else involved in this that we should be aware of?
Well, the case is not closed yet, but at this point, we're focused on the person that we know is the suspect. So the case is not closed. It's an ongoing investigation, but this is, right now, Mr. Momeni is our focus and a single suspect in this case. Let me just clarify. We served 2 warrants, 2 search warrants in San Francisco, and an arrest warrant and search warrant in Emeryville.
Michael?
Chief, why was the arrest made now? Was there new evidence in the case? How early on did the department know that Mr. Momeni was the suspect?
Well, in any investigation, when we get to the point where we're comfortable that we have enough evidence to make the arrest and we're comfortable, this is where working with our district attorney's office really, really matters. And just as an aside, it's not too common where you have a district attorney who prosecuted homicides and a chief of police who has worked homicide. And we understand the nuances with these investigations. We both do. So we appreciate the work that our teams, our respective teams do. But when we work together and we communicate, we know at which point, because we're taking advice from our prosecutors, when we're ready to proceed with an arrest, when we have enough, when they feel comfortable, and I'll let the DA speak to that, comfortable enough that we have a case that we can move forward with. And once that's done, we will make the arrest, and that's what happened in this case.
Let me just say this. The police's arrest standard is probable cause. When they hand a case over to my office, the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. And so we have to remain in communication about when enough evidence has been mounted, not simply for an arrest in a case like this, but so that when the DA's office is handed a case, that we have enough evidence to prosecute to charge and to prosecute to our standard, which is higher than the police arrest standard.
Has he been under surveillance? It sounds like you all knew early on that he was a suspect.
What I will say is this. We've said multiple times now that we are not going to discuss any other facts about this investigation. This is still an ongoing investigation. We are not at the end of the road. We are truly at the beginning of the road. My office has to, again, have sufficient evidence to be able to prosecute this case to a jury, which to do that, his department still has more work to do. And so at this time, we would ask that you respect that fact. We have a family who's entitled to justice here in this case, and the only way that can be delivered to them is if we protect the integrity of this ongoing investigation.
Chief Scott, Chris Velasco from the Washington Post. We've spoken to people who have indicated that the motivation for the attack was a personal entanglement between Mr. Lee and a member of Mr. Momeni's family. Is that an area of focus in this investigation? Do you have a comment on that?
Well, I don't have a comment in terms of confirming that or not confirming that. What I will say is ongoing investigation. We know they knew each other. We know that much, and we've confirmed that. And there's still some work to be done. So what I don't want to do is put out information that's going to come back and haunt us or the prosecution of this case. So I understand how hard that is. I know everybody wants answers, but please be patient with us on this because we definitely we are where we are in terms of the arrest, the filing of charges. There's still more work to be done, though. Thank you.
All right, Leanne, go ahead, and we're gonna just take a few more after this.
Yeah, Chief, with regard to what you just said, that you treat every homicide case the same way, there was a murder back in June of this year, less than a year ago. His name was Samuel St. Pierre. His parents are from Arizona. You have the make of the vehicle where, you know, the person shot. It was in the marina. His family just wants to hear you say, you know, that you're still, you know, working as hard as possible. I mean, what do you say? That has not been solved yet.
And we are, Leanne, we are working as hard as we can on those cases. And, you know, sometimes evidence comes together, and sometimes, you know, we have evidence that we have to continue to develop. We have to continue to corroborate. And every case is different, but we are working on that case. I'm familiar with all cases, but we are working on that case. We don't give up. I mentioned earlier in my comments, you know, we just solved the case from 1994, you know. And look, let me be clear. Every case is not solved. I wish that were the case. I wish that we can solve every case, and we try our best. But we don't give up on these cases. And if there's active evidence that we can follow, we continue to follow those cases. We've solved cases this year from prior years. So what I would say to the public is, we don't lose hope. Please don't lose hope if your case is still out there. We know some cases go dormant. We've actually invested resources in cold case investigations. We hire retired officers, retired investigators to assist in these cases. We have a cold case unit, and we don't give up on these cases. So if the evidence takes us to an arrest, we definitely will make that arrest. But, you know, with that case, we still have more work to do, and we will do more work. Thank you.
TV 29, Chief, you said you worked around the clock on this. By the mayor the other day, putting more money in their budget, does that have anything to do with keeping people working, so you can get more done and get the case where it is?
Well, absolutely it does. You know, our members work 10 hours a day. And when you have a homicide investigator that basically is spending the night in his office, that's done on overtime. And as you all probably might imagine, you know, the onset and the first, you know, week or so of a case, the first couple of days, you're hot on leads. We work very hard. Our folks work very hard. So yes, you can't do that without the resources. And I'm grateful that the mayor put that to the board, and I'm grateful for the board for approving that, because otherwise we can't not do what we do. Most of our homicides, there is a pretty significant amount of overtime that we have to expend. We're working weekends, we're working nights. And then when the trials come, we still have the other cases while we're working with the DAs on the trials. So just think about, these homicide investigators still have other cases that they have to deal with. So yes, to answer your question, those resources are absolutely vital. Let's make no mistake about it. Absolutely vital.
All right, we need two more, right here in the room.
Chief, was a murder weapon recovered, and if so, where?
Can't disclose, and again, the facts will come out, but we are confident in the evidence that we have found so far. And that's really limited to what I can say now, because we do still have work to do on this case. Even though we had enough to arrest in the file, as the district attorney and I have said, we still have work to do.
Last one, right here.
A question for the district attorney, please. You had spoken to this incident and the narrative of San Francisco as a lawless place, which you described. I know you're all dealing with that narrative. Maybe I'm mistaken. I thought there was a tweet from your office describing this as random or something to that effect. Can you address that, and also just more details, please, about how this doesn't fit that narrative? It's something else.
Since this incident happened, since waking up to Elon Musk's tweet, my office has worked hard to actually tell people not to make assumptions about this case. We knew nothing about the facts of this case immediately after it happened. None of us did. And so my urging through Twitter, through the news, was to really press upon not just the media, but the residents of San Francisco and everyone else not to draw conclusions about what happened in this case, and actually to wait and to be patient, to let this investigation play out so that we could actually come back with facts. And so now, as you've heard, we do have some facts that we can offer, which is that the killer was a known person to Mr. Lee. But at no point have I tried to represent what happened here, because until now, no one knew.
Okay, so this doesn't fit the narrative. I mean, you have described San Francisco as lawless, we talked about that, and the problems that you're having with random violence, this is something completely apart in your mind.
This is something apart from things that we have seen. We all understand, I live in San Francisco as well, that we have had issues with crime. That is why San Francisco made a choice to want new leadership in my office, and I've been working alongside the chief and the mayor to make sure that public safety is a top priority in the city, that we move the ball forward so that San Franciscans, like I said, don't just feel safe, but in actuality are safe. And so we are on a positive trajectory in this city. We are seeing crime rates drop across most categories. We still have a long way to go, but we are all aligned in where this city needs to go. And I think that's what's most important here.
Okay, no more questions. The mayor's going to address the audience.
Thank you again to our District Attorney, Brooke Jenkins, and our Police Chief, Bill Scott. And I just want to take this into perspective. Just 2 days ago, our District Attorney announced a murder conviction. And today, not only the solving of this case, an arrest made in this case, but also a 1994 case. What the people of San Francisco have asked for time and time again as it relates to crime in our city has been accountability. And that's what you see with the two leaders joining us here today, is accountability to make it clear that people who commit crimes in our city of any capacity will be brought to justice. That is our goal, to make San Francisco a better, more safer city for each and every one of us. Thank you so much.
And our office will be putting out a news release after this shortly.